Joys of technology. I'd like to welcome everybody to the September 2022 board meeting and call it to order. We'll start as has been our custom with public comment. I would ask you to, if you have comments, to come to the podium and state your name and tell us what district you're from. And no one is rushing to the podium.
I'll bite.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Brian Polstaway, District 2. Just a comment about the budget that's going to be discussed tonight. I support, understand the notion of raising taxes to fund the things that we need to fund in the district. 100% increase in anything is a lot, whether it's sublease fees we talked about last year, or district portion of property taxes that we talked about that. Well, two things. I would hope the board is considering things like grants, other fees that could be imposed, raised, whatever. They've done 100%. I know there's probably some money out there someplace we can add if we dig around for it.
We look at those kinds of opportunities all the time. We have had extensive discussions about how we can increase our regular revenues. And we also continue to encourage people to give to the two charitable funds that we set up through the county foundations. The special benefits tax, and I'm going to let Debbie chime in if I don't get this right. The special benefits tax is not necessarily a forever tax. It's for the specific hydraulic dredging project. And our hope is that we would, once that project is completed this time around, that we will reduce that. Am I correct?
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
I'm not sure everybody does.
I'm sure
It
of
took
that.
me a minute to get over the notion that my entire property tax bill is going to go over.
Well,
No, just,
no.
just the tax
I know,
levy.
I understand, just the district portion of it, so it's
Exactly.
a small part, but
It is.
at first glance, before I had to think about it for a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, okay, it's that piece of the property tax.
I-
So maybe a suggestion would be in their meeting, the next board meeting, when the budget is adopted, or newsletter or whatever, maybe illustrate that with a hypothetical tax bill.
Right.
We're gonna have another video coming out next week. I'll actually be having one of the engineers, the people from the dredging project kind of chime in as well. But I will go through and give an example and pick a property, and I'll show people how to go to the GIS websites, look at the property tax, and then see what portion is the special benefits tax. So we'll pick a home and then go through it so you can see actually what it is and what it would be.
I think it'd be good.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
It's good
And
feedback, Brian. Thank
It
you.
is good feedback, and I've talked to Adam about, I've been trying to be as transparent as we can about it, but I know not everybody comes to these meetings and not everybody sees that information. So we need people to understand that it is coming. And when I came onto the board over 4 years ago, as I said last year, I was like, we cannot tax our way out of this, but we have a unique opportunity right now, to overall save on capital expenditures by capitalizing on this opportunity to get as much out of the lake as we can right now with the permits we have, et cetera. So it really just seemed like that was we issued the bonds and now we got another
I'm
check.
on board with all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think I think it needs to be communicated a little more clearly. What's going on? If anybody hears 100%, right, 100% is 100%, and that's hurts some things. That's the impression that some people that I've talked to have.
I'll make sure to clarify that.
We will make sure that we do it.
Yes, part of it is going up 100%. Like I said, 100% of
It's a
anything is
small
a lot.
part of it. Yeah. Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the feedback, Brian.
Mike Blackwell joined us, but now he doesn't appear to be there anymore, so.
Hi, John Hannell, District 2. I know that because I've been Brian's neighbor for about 15 years. Otherwise,
Two people here.
first time caller, first time visitor.
Uh-huh.
I will admit up front, I'm ill-informed. But I did hear the raising of tax and there might be an additional dock fee for freeholders. Excuse me. And again, 100% is always an alarm to everyone.
Sure.
I realize it's the district tax. I have just learned that there's an opportunity to capitalize. And if you really mean to turn into a capital budget or to be able to leverage the freeholders in a positive way for the lake, I'm for that to a degree. By the way, let me back up a little bit. I concur with everything Brian said. Me and my family have enjoyed the lake. We continue to enjoy the lake and we hope to enjoy it for decades to come. So we are all for the betterment of the lake. There's no question about that. But I also hear of fundraising. And I can appreciate every piece of that, except for I learned just couple years ago, actually, that not everyone pays for a dock. So we tax the freeholders who really own land. I own a couple properties, who really own land and houses on the lake and maintain their areas quite reputably, as does everyone else. But when you, and I don't know the ratio of land owners and freeholders, if that's what you want to call them. And maybe it's 4-to-1. Maybe there's 400 docks and 100 of those are freeholders. And we're asking, I mean, the freeholders, frankly, have been uplifting this lake since the bylaws, I guess is where all this is written. It's pretty obvious to me that if we all chipped in and we all had a dock fee, that we'd be raising exponentially the funds that we have today. Instead of leaning on the minority to uplift the entire lake, why don't we be inclusive of everyone who enjoys the lake?
So every landowner is a freeholder. So every landowner within the property pays a special benefits tax. There's about 170 or so non-riparian owners that pay the sublease fee or the dock fee.
So you don't own up.
So you
to
don't,
the
so you
water.
don't own up to the water. So you pay to put the dock on it. So we raised, I think this year was around $35,000 on those, but so everybody pays a special benefits tax within the district. And then the sublease fee is just for people that don't own up to the waters and are placing their dock on city property.
Because the city is.
But why don't we institute a
retain
dock
that
fee?
ownership.
Well, we have, great minds here because we have toyed with that idea, but it's complicated. And I'm sure it's going to come up again because it just did. You just brought it up.
Well, I bring it up because it's the obvious. I mean, I'm a newbie here. I don't attend these all the time and I haven't.
Mhm.
But when I hear something so obtrusive that we're going to tax that smaller portion who already pays and who has been paying. But then, let me break that out.
Because everybody, all the 500 and some odd freeholders are assessed the Conservancy District Special Benefits Tax. And there
Wonderful.
are
Yeah,
that
it's not
small
just a few.
number that lease basically from the city of Bloomington Utilities because they have retained the rights to all that property and they require that.
Okay.
And it's kind of the way it was written in the whole district plan and things like
Yeah.
I
that.
love
Who
that.
has
I love
rights
that
and who
because it's
doesn't.
fair across the board. Everyone is included is what you're telling me. Everyone is included in that district tax.
Oh,
Right.
everyone
Oh,
is.
that's-
Oh, yeah, no question. That's how,
And that's wonderful. So now let's dig down for me if we can, on the dock fee. You know, if I'm a freeholder and I've been paying $160 for my lifetime that I've been here, that's great, because I know that's going back to the Conservancy District. We have a budget, we have things to do. I understand all this, and I'm happy to be there doing that. Because it's not $2,000, and it's not $350, and it's not. All I'm saying then, at this point, my only point is, as the board, can we dig down those difficulties of applying a fee to everyone that owns a dock for the betterment of all of our lake? And you know what? At the end of the day, it just kind of makes it more fair.
As I said, that's
it's been.
something that we have been discussing.
Well, is that something that we could put on the agenda for the next meeting so that we can drill down into, because I know bylaws are laws. And there are laws that govern what you guys are able to do every time you do something. I know. I've sat on boards. I haven't attended this one.
Yeah.
What I want to do is spur my board to investigate that thoroughly and come up with a bulleted list of what we need to do to move to more equality across our lake, To
And then we
raise-
will do that.
solely to raise funds for our lake.
But what I do want you to realize is that everyone pays that special benefits tax.
I'm good.
Okay,
We're good with that.
all
Right.
right,
That's a victory.
thank you.
Thank you.
At some point.
Let me
we will
ask
talk
though,
about-
I'm in agreement. Is there a legal reason that we can't do that? Because I mean, every dock out there
Okay,
is.
we're not gonna have this whole discussion
Okay.
here because we've had some of it before.
It
We're
won't
still-
impact this budget.
it
We
won't
can't
impact
couldn't
the-
change the
Yeah,
budget
yeah.
from last
For the record,
year.
I think we should discuss it.
I agree there needs to be more discussion, but now is not the moment.
Mary Jane, for the record, I would like to go on record and say the board will put this on the agenda to thoroughly investigate if it is law written or if it is just something that's happened over the course of time since the beginning, so.
This has been this way since the Conservancy. was
Okay,
founded.
I would as a,
And we
I
have
would as a
actually
member-
also approached the city of Bloomington. I asked Vic Kelson and John Hamilton if they would just sell that land. And we could then have everybody have riparian
I
rights.
take care of
So-
almost 3 acres of property across Lake Lemon.
Okay.
I love it. I'll take care of it for the
We
rest of my
will-
life for free. If that's what they ask me to do, I don't have to own it. I've got rights to it because it's right on my
I will
property.
assure you,
And so that's none of my question, Mary. None of my question at all.
They clearly want to keep their ownership.
I appreciate that. The city owns the lake.
we're gonna, it's
The city
gonna,
owns the lake.
what I will promise to you
Yeah.
is that it is going to be discussed again, and I didn't mean to cut you off, Les. Because we will take that topic up, but we're not gonna do it now because public comment's over for this evening. And we need to go on and finish the budget for 23.
I understand.
But I think the board would all agree that we will come back and have more
I
discussion.
think we need to
about
look
this.
at what potential revenue would be and what the legal
Oh,
ramifications
it
are,
would be-
things like that. It's
Okay.
basically,
The
it's
revenue would be
not revenue.
incredible.
well,
It
how
would
many
triple
dogs,
what we are
how many
currently.
dogs are you talking
collecting.
And
about?
so I mean, we can implement a dock tax. I would say it would still cost more for a subleasee since they're placing a dock that's not on property. But I don't see the difference between that and then utilizing the special benefits tax to get there as well, instead of nickel and dime on fees. And focusing on,
Can I ask a
Tax
quick
revenue.
question? Not to drag this out,
No.
but if there's 170 docks that are leased through the city of Bloomington Utilities, how many other docks are on the lake? Because not all the 570 have
230,
docks.
230. About 230, not counting the marinas and other community docks.
Yeah, but we'll know that soon because you're still working
Yeah,
on it.
we actually have a project in process to,
I'm a GIS professional. I could get you that information tomorrow if you want.
I'll take it.
yeah.
Okay, so that we can put this on the agenda and really discuss how this lake can really turn around some funds. You know, you have $1 million house, you don't mind too much paying $150 a year for a dock on a wonderful lake that's being upkept by our conservancy district, that's no issue. Come on, let's look at the real stuff here. It shouldn't be an issue. It really shouldn't. I've been doing it gladly.
Yeah. It will
Thank you.
generate some money. It won't generate the kind of
Oh,
money we
it'll
need for
double
this
the money we
project.
pay, triple actually.
Okay, well, thank you for your input. and-
Thank you for
and it
your
will-
service
we
and,
will-
and for your consideration, because
Okay.
this is something that I learned, like I said, and it's really alarming. So, thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we were going to conclude public comments. Well, it is public opinion, isn't it? And move to the next agenda item. Approval of the September 1st board meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Since Steve is on Zoom, we will do the I votes, or, go around verbal votes, is what I'm trying to say. Debbie. Aye. Steve.
Aye.
I am an aye.
Aye.
Malcolm is an aye. Les is an aye. Motion carried. Next agenda item is the treasurer's report. Debbie?
In your board packets are the financial statements. We got these pretty much right when Adam had to send them out. So he and I have talked about a couple of changes that probably need to be made in them, but nothing significant. Overall, when you look at the balance sheet, we've got about $1,230,000 in current assets. We're down to $477,000 in our construction fund, which is why we really need to have these increases to be able to pay for the remainder of the projects and the additional work that we want to do. The $1 million or so in fixed assets, that is not the value of those fixed assets, that's the cost at which we paid years ago. So keep that in mind. That's what's different in this governmental accounting. Current assets or total assets are about 2.3 million then. Our bonds payable are down to $1,120,000. We just have usually carry liabilities that are withholding related, which was $4,000. So overall, the total equity is $1,185,000, but again, I caution you because you can kind of look at that and you've got to see that you've got cash to support it. Our fixed assets are sitting there on the balance sheet as assets of $1,080,000. But with the budgets that we've been preparing, we're basically planning on paying those bonds off over a 20-year period. If you look at the profit and loss for August, for the month of August, we took in $15,500. We had expenditures of $153,000. Of that, the biggest thing was the sediment mitigation, which you'll also see in the vouchers that I'll ask you to approve, which was a payment to Heartland for $121,509. So year to date through August, we're sitting at a net loss of $177,000. If you take a look at the comparison to budget, which is something that we look at closely, this is where we need to make a couple of changes. That's on page 13 of your PDF, but you see that we've got the cumulative conservancy money that comes in that is separate, and we have to use that for certain things just for improvement. Well, the accountant didn't really put the budgeted amount in there, so it kind of looks like there's no budgeted amount, but we in fact did budget $49,000 and do have that budgeted for revenue. So we need to get that one small correction made. But overall, $542,000 compared to our budget of $768,000. no real significant changes. I mean, we keep watching that park admission fee, and unfortunately, I think we've had some rainy weekends, so I don't know if we're gonna hit our budget. We're at 70,390 versus 80.
I think we're sitting just over 90%. We're pretty aggressive going into this year, so we should be within about 8% of what we had budgeted for revenue there.
Watercraft permits, they're a little bit down. We were pretty aggressive on budgeting that at 140,000. Through August, we've got 126,000. Let's hope for, hopefully, I was kind of surprised to see the amount that we had just in the month, because it seems to me a lot of people would like to buy their passes and they wouldn't be, putting their boats in like that. Anyway. And obviously, we're not doing any dredging. We didn't have any dredging riprap income. Overall expenses compared to budget are sitting at 719,000 versus 1.5 million. We still plan on spending quite a bit out for the sediment mitigation project. What we've been able to do based upon last year's budget is pretty much offset. We had positions open for a while. We didn't pay salaries for dredging people. We haven't had a lot of those supplies, so we've been able to kind of offset a lot of our other expenditures. Our consulting engineer fees are much less too, so I feel pretty good at this point about hopefully where we're going to end up at the end of the year. And so there are graphs in your packets that more fully explain those, or kind of a snapshot. Are there any questions from any board members or any discussion? If not, then I would move to ask for a motion to approve the vouchers that were paid in August that total $146,492.91. And again, the biggest share of that was the $121,000 payment. I didn't see anything else that was unusual in there.
So moved. Do we have a second? So Malcolm seconded the motion. It's been moved and seconded. I'll call the roll. Steve?
Aye.
Abby?
Aye.
I am an aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next item, public hearing of the 2023 proposed budget. Debbie?
Bring this up on the
you're
screen.
on.
Okay. Well, we've talked about this. Is this our fourth meeting we've talked about it, or?
I think so, the fourth meeting, but the first official public hearing.
Right. So this is the cumulative conservancy improvement fund budget, and again, we didn't get that corrected. It needs to say 2023 budget. I think we talked about that last time. It says 2022. But we are budgeting $50,000 to come in the park capital improvements. And it's the feeling of the board, I guess I would like to say, the general feeling that those really are going to be used for park improvements and things to do at the park.
Mhm.
They have to be used for capital types of items. They can't really be used for operations. And so we're kind of digging in and have spent some of that money this year.
Yeah, and that was actually a really good addition for revenue from the parks that have been not a whole lot going on for a while there, and now we have a steady source of revenue coming in dedicated to the capital improvement. So this year we've done the shelter reservations, grills, picnic tables. Actually looking at this winter at expanding the beach and getting potentially a dock. We're getting quotes to put a dock area near the beach for parking from the lakeside. So it's really nice to have that dedicated revenue for the park. I think we'll see some major improvements as we move forward with
So you're going to talk more about that later in your report. I'm just
For what we're
wondering
planning
what
on?
Docs are thinking about going.
Yeah, we can talk about it. We're looking at getting some parking spots for 6 boats and then still keeping the mooring area open there, so.
Gotcha. Okay. Next, we look at the general fund budget, and we're looking at their watercraft permits, budgeting a little bit less than what we did this year. We were pretty aggressive in our budgeting. So that's $4,000 less than last year, bumping up the launch fees. We pretty much have tried to raise fees. And in fairness to the freeholders, for all those people that are using the lake, because we're asking all freeholders to really put up a lot of the money and invest in that. But there are a lot of people that come on the lake that use our lake that damages it, creates more issues, things like that. So the one thing that's going to be interesting to try to enforce are the wakeboard fees. And that's a new line item that you see that's $8,000. And I think at one point Les went around and counted all the jet skis or something or the wakeboard boats and.
Yeah, so we put in a fee proposed for next year for ballast boats. So it's gonna be a little bit of a learning curve, working with the gatehouse and the marina to be able to identify these boats with the ballast. I may have to look some stuff up. If we have kids in the gatehouse that are really familiar with boating, they'll be a little bit easier. We are looking at an additional fee for ballast boats just because of the lakes they put out for shoreline erosion, resuspension of sediments. In the fees, we will talk about that. I believe we're looking at $250. Once we get to the fees, we'll talk about that. But we're looking at that in addition, on top of the boat fee. And then there'll also be there'll be one in that same, ratio for daily boats as well. So people that come in for daily boats for wake boats would also pay an additional fee on their daily boating passes.
Do we have time to ask questions about that down the road?
Yes, so right now we're just gonna be discussing the fees. Next month will be when we actually bring the resolution forward. So once we put out the resolution, you can come to public comment with that at the next meeting.
I do think that this whole idea of enforceability is gonna be an issue too, because some people are gonna say, we own that boat, we permit it, but, we never use that feature of it. And I think what you talked about is trying to kind of ease into it more on the honor system and say, do you plan on doing this? So, well,
We'll sit and do a lot of
idea about
education.
how you think, but
Yeah.
it's gonna be kind of gradual, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we had some discussion too with like, should it be an activity that people visit, wakeboarding, wake surfing, people wakeboard behind boats that, are a pontoon,
Right.
but they also wakeboard behind, a teague that has 2,000 pounds of water in the back, so.
And what we're looking at is shoreline erosion, because there's an awful lot of the lake that still isn't riprap.
Right, which is why we kind of think that if we just focus on boats with a ballast capability, that'll.
But
Yeah,
there's no firm cost on that yet, because, my concern is there's bigger boats out there that create just as big of a wake as a wake boat as well, with props that disperse just as much water as a wake does. And what I'm worried about is why are they not being able to be, I'm fine. I know some people who have wake boats and I'm fine with paying some fees, but everybody makes a wake. Everybody's creating erosion regardless of how big your engine is or not. So if we're gonna go penalize only people who have wake boats, that seems a little bit excessive. I'm fine with trying to increase some fees for some of that stuff, but we're all creating erosion regardless of what boat we all make wake.
All right,
So
Thank you.
sorry. Didn't mean to-
No, that's fine.
go ahead.
The sublease fees, line item 4030 is budgeted $30,000, and we can maybe talk after the meeting a little bit, because I just want to be sure you have a clear understanding on that. But if you just kind of do the math, if you were to tax all the docks, which I'm not saying you should, or have a fee, you'll get a little bit more than double that amount. But it's not a big enough money. It's not the money.
Oh, it would
we're
double
looking
that
at.
amount. I've got the numbers right here if you'd like me to.
Okay,
recite them.
we're not gonna
I
have
didn't
that
think so.
discussion this evening.
But I'd love to talk to you afterwards.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. All righty, so this is the, what we call our Conservancy District tax, actually, through the Department of Local Governments, is special benefits tax. And what Adam and I tried to do was kind of differentiate. So line item 4040 is our regular special benefits tax for Brown County at 106,000. And then we're proposing a special benefit hydraulic assessment for this year of another 106,000. And then same if you look at line item 4050 and 4055, similarly, you can see that Monroe County is about 3 times the amount that comes in from Brown County.
And all these are one tax, a special benefits tax. We just have them broken out into line items for transparency to show what we're trying to raise in addition to our normal base amount for the project.
So when you get your bill, it's all gonna be in as special benefits for the Lake Lemon Conservancy District. I think that kind of does it. Park admission fees, we're gonna try to budget that a little bit less than what we did last year. And the other $10,000 is actually, hopefully everybody's kind of seen that. We've got a resolution, I think, tonight, but that's gonna be trying to allow people to bring their boats and store them at the Little Point over the winter.
And we will be implementing that this year, which is why we're amending the resolution to add that fee for this year. So it wasn't in the budget initially as revenue for 2022. But in 2023, we'll be doing that again. So I'm not sure if the newsletter went out already, but there's some more information in there. Then we're developing a form right now that would be just indemnification and waiver of liability. We'll essentially have kind of how Monroe County does have a drop-off date and a pickup date. We're not winterizing or working. You can bring your boats there. We'll lock them in there for the winter time and just try to create some revenue with that lane that's not really being
Is that a
utilized.
semi-heated?
Good idea.
I think, no,
Bozo.
I was just asking if it was semi-heated.
It's outdoors.
It's outdoors.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I
It's
didn't
not
know.
even covered. All right, next up would be the wages. And overall, we're budgeting a slight decrease from last year at about 247,000 down to about 235,000. Probably the biggest changes that you'll notice are that we've got a nominal amount in there for an equipment operator and a push boat operator that, you know, Adam can hire on an as-needed basis, but because we aren't planning on doing the dredging operation, we have no expenditures for that budgeted. Supplies, these aren't big line items. I think what you'll notice would be in operating supplies, for example, last year we budgeted 21,000, this year we're at 10.5. That's because we don't have all this diesel fuel that we're purchasing and not doing the dredging operation. Same with the repairs and maintenance supplies, the riprap and erosion control line item is down because previously we had budgeted to do private jobs last year, and then there was the offsetting cost of doing those projects, and that's not in there now. So overall, total supplies budgeting 47,495 for 2023. If you look at services and charges, and you just go down to the totals, we are budgeting 268,050 versus 244,060 in the prior year. I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments on that. These are a lot of small line items. Our insurance is going up about
Looks
$4,000.
like
Our
things
costs are
going
just
up a little
going
bit.
up. We really try to take a look at the inflation at the 8 or 9%, and then we try to really look at some of these items that are going up more like 30-35% and do our best job at coming up with that.
I think we pretty much shot for a near 8% increase for expected expenditures for the line items.
And lastly, we get to the capital items, and we're budgeting $530,000 for sediment mitigation. That's kind of the remaining amount that'll be on the project we have. And then we're trying to budget money so that we can begin to fill in the overflow pond.
Yeah, so at 5:30, that's what we're budgeting. We will be carrying over money, as we talked about before, under our current contract. I'm trying to think of what the term was for it. We'll be bringing funds that we're expected to spend this year and encumber it into the 2023 budget. So I think we're expecting a little over $300,000 from this current contract to be encumbered into 2023.
Questions or comments?
And then we budgeted a net, we're really trying to keep a pretty even budget with our expected expenditures for the project and really not show that we're trying to make a lot of money for the conservancy. So we were able to budget a net of just $3,000. We're really planning to put all the money to work.
Questions or comments?
Steve, do you have any questions or comments?
No.
I don't think we need a resolution.
We don't need to do
It's the
anything.
first.
That was just discussion next.
The approval of the budget will be next month. All right, thank you, Debbie.
Mhm.
Now we move to item 6, the manager's report. Adam?
All right, first up, we have the fees and charges, and let me go ahead and pull up the board packets. Just show this. So for our 2020 fees and charges, what was that? Oh, how about I share it too? Couple file size. So this resolution was passed last year. It's our 2022 fees and charges. In order to be kosher with the Department of Local Government Finance and future audits, we really need to have a budget line item for any projected revenue and set fees that we have. So what I would like to do is amend the resolution to include the storage fee for this winter time, which will be $200 per vessel for the wintertime storage fee at Brittle Point Park. So we just need to vote, and I would request a motion to amend fees and charges resolution 10/21/08 with the addition of a $200 winter boat storage fee.
Such a motion.
No, Malcolm has moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Les has seconded. It's been moved and seconded to add, to amend resolution 10-21-08 to include the winter boat storage fee of $200. All those, right. Steve,
Aye.
Is that an aye?
was that an aye?
Yes. Yes.
Debbie,
Aye.
I am an aye. Les, aye. Malcolm,
Can I belatedly ask a question now that it's already passed? So this is also a
let me
learning,
just say this. Motion carried.
okay, I assume this is also a learning curve because we really don't know how many people store their boats there.
Yeah.
And, okay,
Yeah, so anything that we get this year is just additional revenue
That we
that
didn't-
we're not
that
planning
makes sense.
on. So we'll be able to gauge it a little bit, and that'll really help our discussion for the fees.
so you're guessing 50 boats.
Hopefully, we're gonna do an online form, that Jessica will send out to everybody, so they'll sign up online, and that will come out, this month or early next month.
I think it needs to come out soon because
Yeah.
people are making plans to take their boats out of the water and winterize them, so they need to know, like, I think we need to be advertising it.
Yeah, so we'll be able to, before next month's meeting, we'll be able to see, approximate interest for this, because the form will be out.
Well, what
So
kind
it's
of
not
worries me a little bit,
Well,
because I selfishly wanted to store one of our boats over there, is that I was asking Adam about the timing and he said the 1st of November, and I'm like, well, we'll be pulling our boat out, so when someone pulls their boat out and gets it wrapped and it's ready to go, like, you're gonna have to be a little bit more aggressive, I think. I think a lot of people will be getting their boats out in the October
Yeah.
time.
So the date that is out in the newsletter that we're gonna do is October 22nd. Saturday, October 22nd will be the boat
Okay.
drop off day.
So you're both.
And that's in line with the fairgrounds, isn't it?
Right, Fairgrounds is the first Saturday in November.
Less cost than Fairgrounds is 300 and it's first. and fifth.
It's the first Saturday in
Is the
November.
fairgrounds?
Fairgrounds is 300.
Oh,
So steadily.
Hopefully we'll get
Yeah.
some takers.
Will they be able to wrap the boats when they're inside? If you bring them in the park.
Yeah, we could work with
Yeah, we
that.
could work.
If you wanted to have somebody come in, say a
when
company
it
come in
runs,
and do wrap
Wraps.
it, yeah, just let us know and work around so we can.
well, gosh, maybe a lot of us could just get the same company to come in.
Yeah,
I mean,
That'd
we
be the
should look
thing.
into that.
They do that at the marina. They wait till they get about 5 or 6 boats in, and then somebody, I think from Pine Grove comes there and he
Mhm.
winterizes them and wraps them and everything.
Yeah, Chuck always does ours on Pine Grove too.
Chuck does the maintenance.
yeah, so we could definitely allow that. We really don't want to have any winterization, just because we don't have anywhere to get rid of like chemicals and that kind of
Right,
stuff. But as
understand.
far as the boat wrapping, I think that would be fine.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, fine, no.
I thought you said fun.
Yeah, maybe, hopefully it's fun.
Another way to make some more money. That's-
Yeah, so that's again, looking at how we can build revenue up. Next up, we have our 2023 fees and charges, and again, this is just a discussion. The resolution won't come out until the October meeting for the fees and charges. So we pretty much have looked at an 8% increase approximately to the nearest dollar on the boat passes and everything. So we'd be looking at the resident fees for an annual $80 versus 74, non-resident 119 versus 110 this year. If you're under 10 horsepower, so the row sales be $54 up from 50 for residents, or 84 up from 78 for non-residents. The personal watercrafts, we're looking at $162 up from 150 for residents and 200 up from 185 for non-residents. The commercial guide fee stays the same. Ever since we implemented that, we haven't had any commercial fishing out, which I'm not necessarily upset about. The daily boat permits, we also raised to almost that 8% or the maximum of what we were allowed to. The fees are all based on the cost of living index. And so we can only raise it from what the initial fee was in a ratio to where we are now. So we're set by our lease with the City of Bloomington Utilities on how much we can raise those fees. So the dailies went up a little bit, the personal watercraft went up. I'm not sure too many people here have dailies. About $1 for personal watercraft, and that was because that was the maximum that we can raise it. The annual fee for the ramp sticker, and again, that'd be people that are not keeping their boat on the water, went up $1. And we are cognizant of raising the daily rates and the annual fee too much, and they're kind of hitting twice with the taxes there. And then the new fee that we talked about was the ballast fee. So we were looking at a daily charge of $18 for the ballast fee for these wake boats that come in. So that would put a daily at 15, and the ramp fee would it come up to about $40, $50.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
no, I can't remember.
15 and 38 and the 18. So we try to keep the ratios the same of what the 200 was versus an annual pass to what this daily fee would be. And it was approximately 20%. So that's the newest fee on there. Moving forward, the fishing tournaments. Yeah.
Just a procedural question. So we just had a motion to add the storage line item.
Mhm.
Isn't this also a new line item, the
For next year.
ballast?
Yes, the one we amended was for the 2022 budget. So this is all for next year.
Okay.
So
I see.
we're trying to include all the potential fees, so we won't need to amend it.
Do we have the storage on this one?
Yes. The fishing tournaments we raised to $90. And then sub-lease fees, we raised it to $230 last year. In here, we have $250. Again, it's just a discussion now. But we have talked about doing kind of regular occurring smaller increases for the fees. That's what we have in here right now. And then the commercial sublease agreement fee up to 65%. Now, these were both right at that 8% increase on those values. Same thing with the commercial marina fees and the wet slips. We looked at essentially an 8% for the increase on that. So annual fees from $1,200 to $1,300. The occupied wet slips from 90 to 100, and occupied jet ski slips from 45 to 50. Currently, the only place that pays us is the marina that have their annual fee, and then the slips. The Bloomington Yacht Club does pay us, but they do get a discount since they are a non-for-profit. So that would be the non-for-profit slips. For Riddle Point Park, we've really been discussing in the office on how to tier out and get more money out of the events that come there. We've had a couple interest in a couple weddings this year. And if they had not many people, they were being able to just rent the shelter house for $150. And it's a lot more work for us versus just the shelter house. We're looking at tiering out these fees to increase the revenue. So the first new tier that we're proposing would be an on-lake special event. So this would be like the IU Dale England Cup rowing event. Historically, they would pay just the daily special, which for 2022 was $360. They had a 2-day event this year, so we got $720 total. This next year for on-lake special event fees, we're proposing $1,500. And really, because half the lake becomes slow no wake, we have to enforce it. We have to let everybody know. I have talked with IU head coach and let him know that this is what we're going to be charging next year. So that's going to be a pretty substantial amount. We'll be going to $3,000 for their 2-day event versus $720. And then we also have had some interest from the ski and wakeboard team about potentially hosting wakeboard tournaments and ski tournaments next year out on the lake. So again, that would be that $1,500 per day per event on lake fee.
Okay.
We also did a special event fee, so this would be anything above just a standard shelter rental. So that was historically $360. We've bumped that up to $500. So if somebody wanted to have a wedding and use the shelter house, they would pay the special event fee plus a shelter rental. We've also had people this year host large gatherings on Myrtle Point. They would rent out kind of that whole area. So we're upping those fees so we can capture a little bit more of that revenue. Also, during the season, Memorial Day to Labor Day, anybody that is hosting these special events, we are charging everybody except for the person on the contract a vehicle entry fee. So if you did have a wedding between Memorial Day and Labor Day, they're paying the special events fee, plus they're paying the $10 per car to come into the park. The shelter rental
What
fee.
kind of space do they get on the special event fee? It seems to me you've got kind of like
We work
like a
with them.
shelter and then like how much of the lake do
It
they?
really depends on the event. So we don't rent out the beach since we're a public beach. We don't rent out the beach or close that off. I'm not sure if we're allowed to, but we just wouldn't do that.
Okay.
So it really depends on the event. We've had people that wanted to put like a little gathering tent out in the open field and kind of rope off that area. We think that's fine. We've had people that have taken about half the point away from the beach in that area. We'll kind of mark that off. So it kind of goes
Okay.
with the event, but we wouldn't let somebody have the whole park. We won't
Right.
exclude the general public from the beach, and we wouldn't let anything get in the way of our general operations.
All right.
So
Okay. Thank you.
the winter boat storage fee, $250 for next year, which I think is more in line with the fairgrounds, actually less than the fairgrounds. And I'm just proposing that. We had 200 this year just to see what we're gonna end up with, and I have 250 proposed for next year, which
Needless to say, the fairgrounds, it's indoors.
it is. Again, the discussion now, but we'll see what kind of revenue we get from that. For the daily admission fees, this is one where we have raised the daily pass and the annual pass every year for the past, I think, 3 to 4 years, almost $1 per year. And I do not want to raise that again. I think the people that we have coming to the park, I think we're starting to see a reduction. I honestly think the reason we were so high in revenue this year was from the people that come out and snail. I think that's where a lot of the revenue is coming from, that come and collecting the riprap. So I would propose that we keep the fees the same for just this next year. Because we do hear a lot from the general public out there that $10, we don't have a really high fluent crowd coming to the park. So I think if we keep raising that up, we're gonna get a little bit of a reduction in users. And not that we shouldn't raise it again, but just hold it this price for 1 year, then we can look at, going next year to that $11 or what we decide to do. The season pass, again, keeping it the $70, which it was in 2022. Administrative fees, the $10 per page, we really hardly, I don't know
10
the last
cents.
time I charged that. Yeah, 10 cents per page, sorry. I don't know the last time we charged that. The dredging and shoreline, since we saw the equipment in hand, I did go ahead and put a pricing in here. We don't have it in our budget. But for some reason, if we needed to do a project, I figured we'd at least have that pricing in there just so we didn't have to come back and amend anything. That way we were kosher with all of our
But Adam, I
fees.
mean, we don't have access to the large park.
Correct, not currently because it's under lease. Yeah.
So, I mean, is that even possible? I mean,
If we didn't sell it, there's scenarios where it would be possible since that lease ends at the end of the year. So really just kind of have it in as a placeholder. And I raised it up quite a bit, because I don't plan on it, but if we are gonna do it, might as well have some money, but I don't think we will. Same thing with the shoreline erosion control. And that's really, is there any discussion or comments from the board? And again, this is just the proposed, the resolution would come at the next board meeting.
Well, and couch that with, it's just proposed, but these are the numbers that are included in the budget. It was driven off of that, so, so hopefully nobody has any major objections. I, for one, as you know, think we should raise the daily admission fee. I just feel like we're living in crazy time right now with inflation. Everything's going up. It's just raised interest rates again. I get worried because when we look at some of these fees, I mean, we've just now started really raising them the last, few years. I mean, a lot of these fees just sat for a long time. And big increases aren't very well received.
$7 or $35 for the year. And we do lose, I mean, we're not funded by DNR, but that is another option for people to go to. And there's multiple beaches on Monroe. So I think we need to be cognizant. I think boating, we provide a lot of benefit on the lake. We're not nearly as crowded. We're not a party lake. The fishing's good. I think there's a lot more benefit for the boaters. I think they have more money in their pocket if you're got an $8,000 boat to pay that. I think the beach goers, if we go much higher, then I think Monroe would see more people. I think during the pandemic, we had some come in and actually stay because they did like the area. Now we are doing a lot of improvement, so I think we will be able to, come
I
out
just-
and raise a.
I get what you're saying. You and I've had this discussion a number of times, but you go to Starbucks and what do you spend? I mean, I'm just thinking $1, what's $1? And we missed this $1 this year, then what are we gonna do about $1 next year? It's just kind of like small increases. And these are people that are using our lake and we're asking the freeholders to chunk in way more money. So that's just my opinion.
Park goers, what percentage of them pay with a card and what percentage pay?
50/50, maybe a little more cash.
Because you're gonna be in a situation if you charge $11.
That's
Well, you
not-
have to get, $800 in dividends
That's the
extra.
change.
That's
We did talk about
$10
some of
is
these.
easy.
You're not splitting it
Change
20.
you have
I would
to
probably
do.
say it's 60/40, maybe 60%
Well, it's just something to
our
think about.
cash and 40 card.
We don't. Public comment is over. Do you just have a question?
Yeah. go
Yeah, that's why I raised my hand.
Sure, go ahead.
How many people come to the gate?
Come to what?
How many
Through the
people come
gate.
through the gate?
This year, 7,200 people approximately.
So that's $7,200 that we're talking about.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
That's $3,000.
Well,
No, but if we raise it $1.
if we raise $7, is his point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe seven grand,
I mean,
$8,000 if we.
But the fear is if we
You
keep
drive
raising
people
it,
away.
then 7,200 people aren't gonna come through the gate.
Yeah, we've been seeing a decrease over the past 2 years up to this year of usership by almost 15% when we were looking at last year.
Hey.
And I do think this year that
Increase.
But the
This
park
year we're doing
admission
good.
fees, that we're budgeting are $72,000.
Yes, which is 7,200 cars.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
where I'm kind of
Yeah.
like, right. When you said 7,200, I was thinking, that's not $7,200.
If we were to raise it.
If we raised it $1.
And kept 100% retention.
Right,
I
right.
don't, I don't know that you can compare over the last 2 years. You had a spike because of Monroe was closed, and we had COVID,
Yeah.
and so it went way up, and now it's coming back to normal.
And that's why the revenue is coming in lower than we projected, because we were comparing it to 21 or 2020 and 2021 where pools were closed, public beaches were closed, so everything was
But-
artificially.
But if you look
And-
at it, you just show that again. If
Yeah,
you
we
look
did-
at that, though, our 2021 actual on park admissions were 67,000 and we had only budgeted 45,000. Last year, we got pretty aggressive and we budgeted 80,000 and we're not gonna be far off of that,
No, we'll be in the low 70s.
yeah,
So,
so.
Any other comments or questions on the budget?
I'm okay with the $10 daily entry. I think we should provide some access for people that can't afford to have a place on the lake, you know. And that, their only option, so.
Steve, do you have any questions or comments?
I do not.
all right, that's a discussion. The sediment management project, I really don't have a whole lot right now. The booster pump is installed. It is running pretty well. I think they had some engineers down from the company that sold it to start fine tuning it. Next week, we'll have another video coming out, and I will have Mark Zelinski with Heartland Dredging on there as well to kind of talk about the operation from his end. We'll also highlight the special benefits tax, and we'll let people know how they can go look at what that tax is, and so how it would affect them
So
personally.
you'll do an example, a couple of examples.
Correct, yeah, we'll select some houses. I'm sorry if it's your house, we're gonna do it randomly, but we'll show the websites to go to for GIS, how you can click on the parcels. You can see your tax bill, what's the special benefits tax, the conservancy, and you'll be able to see what you will be paying for next year.
Some of us can offer ours.
Like out the name and the address.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
public data.
So,
Yeah.
so that's really it for now, and we'll have some pretty cool pictures too. I was up at the site today and it looks like a little island oasis out there. There's probably half acre at
Yeah.
least now where the sediment is above the water line and then just building out. So it's very cool to watch that area fill up.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's going well. We'll have lots more information and send that out next week.
That's good.
That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to item 7. Several of you already know what's about to come out of my mouth, and I'm gonna try to not, don't look at me, Jessica. I'm gonna try not to get emotional. I have made a personal decision to sell my home on the lake and to move back to Chicago. And this is all good for me personally, but it will be very, very difficult to leave all of you. But I also feel that the board and the management of the lake are in good places and in good hands. And so I will be here next month, but then I will be stepping aside. And that means that the board will have to get a new interim chair. And District 3 will need a new representative. And Adam and I have already started, well, actually Adam and Les and I had some discussion on the District 3 piece, and there's more to come on that.
And we basically, you guys suggest your replacement through the February
Through
timeframe.
the
then there'll
annual
be an
meeting,
election
and then there
for
will
your
also
spot.
need to be an election
Yeah, we'll-
for the remainder of my term.
Okay,
We'll send out a mailer to District 3 soliciting a letter of interest from those candidates for the interim individual. We just motion and select that. There's not a big election or anything. And then Mike Blackwell, District 7, that area is up for a full 4-year term reelection. During this election process also, we will solicit nominations for District 3, which would fill the remaining 1-year term of Mary Jane's, and then it would go back to a full 4-year term.
Issue.
We're in Chicago.
It's going to be a downtown girl.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're going back home to your family and
Yeah.
everything. It's a good move for you.
I keep getting, every time I see my family or talk to them, it's when are you coming home? It's not, gee, do you ever think about this? But the timing is such that I should go now. All right. Our next meeting will be Thursday, October 27th, right here at the City of Bloomington Utilities, and it will be the board meeting to adopt the proposed 2023 budget. With that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Motion. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. Steve, how say you?
I agree.
Debbie?
Aye.
I'm an aye.
Aye.
Les is an aye. Malcolm is an aye. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening. Meeting adjourned.
Motion carried.
It's amazing how that motion usually carries.
Uh,